Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome back to Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm your host, Sheila Slick. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, you need the full story. In part 1, I sat down with the co-authors of The Rise of the Self-Led Woman, and we talked about the moment it became real, what changed after their stories were published. Then Kassandra Hamilton asked a question that stopped the room.
What's next and what's going to open up for you, and how can we make that happen? What impact do you want to have?
We'll start with Katrina.
I've got tears over here too. Thank you. Yeah. So for those of you that read my chapter or have heard the podcast, to speak to my story, like I had said, I have spoke to it lots. And I know Kassandra brought over my books because we live in the same town. And just the other day, and I have not given a single book out. So I don't have the same experience at this point, but it's like they're sitting in my studio. I'm imagining them there right now. But I know from speaking my story, and I've spoke to so many nurses that are suicidal or they can't sleep. They're so traumatized, so many things, right? And then we're human. We're not just nurses. Majority of us are women. But I know that even speaking my story and then reflecting back that where I'm at this point in my healing journey has brought people hope. And I will speak to whoever wants to speak to it, because we are human and we have the same systems to work with. And so, even working with the veterans I work with or other clients that I work with, and to speak to how you can come from one place of darkness and into this light. It's possible. So just that hope, I would speak to hope.
In case they haven't read the chapter or listened to the episode, Katrina Stevenson is the founder and CEO of Nurse to Nurse Peer Support and the creator of Mindful Nurse Gardener. She's a leader in trauma-sensitive care who transformed her own journey from compassion fatigue to healing into a mission to support others. And so now I will introduce Teresa. Teresa McClellan is the founder of The Sacred Journey, a master's level trauma therapist, intuitive guide, and healer whose work bridges the clinical and the sacred. Tell us a little bit about your piece. And Kassandra had asked, what is your next step?
Thanks, Sheila. Yeah, so what's next? I think that I've continued writing, and really my hope is with my writing in all that I do is kind of giving like an inside out understanding of trauma. I've lived probably from the time of conception with the impacts of generational trauma, childhood trauma, until my adult life. So it feels like my entire life has been healing. And it was never traditional. I don't think I could be where I am today without the spiritual path I've been on. So the work that I do really is this sort of unique combination that feels like in the spiritual world sort of doesn't necessarily consider or take into consideration the psychology, whereas the psychology doesn't necessarily take into consideration the spiritual path. So I have this sort of lens of holding both. And that's really what I want to be able to sort of speak to people is there's so much more to healing and there's so much more to us as human beings. And so it feels like finding my voice is really being able to speak about what I know, what I see, what I feel, where I've been, what I've done, not in a prescriptive way, but very much in a sort of experiential, find your own way, like really coming to your own authenticity, your own truth. And I think that's really the heart of what I do. So, continuing to do the writing, I've written another chapter called The Architecture of Survival. So, really speaking to the embodied experience of both the survival mechanisms, nervous system response to trauma, as well as the healing path. And then I'm in the process of potentially writing a full book of my life story, which starts to get complicated because of the nature of some of my experiences and my absolute terror of being seen and being visible. So those are, again, the sort of things I'm still working through. It feels like everything I write about, I'm still working through. So it's definitely a work in progress, not necessarily a destination that I've arrived at yet.
Sounds like you have 100% momentum going. You've talked about another chapter and a full book. So Casey McDonald is next, and Casey is a medical intuitive and energy medicine specialist whose journey through a mysterious health crisis that left her unable to move or to speak became the foundation of her own healing work. Tell us about your chapter and what's next for you, Casey.
Well, it's a little bit ironic that my chapter's called Next Best Step. And so I speak to how I navigated my healing journey by being very present and connecting in with what I say. I prayed to God with what my next best step was, even if it was just to take a breath, right? So definitely have been sitting with this, and it started to just really naturally unfold because, like many of us have spoken about, wanting to create impact is really important, and really honoring my values. And I really talk about how healing is possible. And so one of the biggest ways that I want to do that is by giving people hope. Even people who have severe health issues like I did, unable to move and speak and no medical answers, like genuinely it's possible, and that there is a pathway, and we may just need to open up our mind and our hearts to those possibilities. And so naturally it's turning into, I've been able to open up some new courses. So I'm doing an energy hygiene for men right now, which has been really wonderful. And then there's another course coming up and another book coming up that will go together with that course with a manual. So I want to empower people. That's one of the main pillars of my business, is to empower people with these tools to learn more. It's about self-trust, growing their self-trust and in their own intuitive abilities. I believe that the skills and tools that I have as someone who can visualize, someone who can sense and feel things and know things, that these skills and energy hygiene should be taught in schools for children. This is who we are. We are energy. And when we can learn and understand how we can move through the world as an energetic being, to me, it just, again, it creates so many possibilities, and it can improve some of these difficult relational dynamics we've been seeing in homes and in our communities. And so there's a course coming, another book coming, and just empowering people with more tools. If we can have everybody doing this work, well, how amazing would that be? So,
Well, thank you for sharing. And now we're moving on to Diane Lohr. Diane is the founder of Simple Systems for Thriving, guiding midlife women in leadership from chronic depletion to sustainable, grounded abundance. So, Diane, what can you tell us about your chapter and what are your next steps?
So the beautiful thing is that as I wrote this chapter, I really spoke about how Crohn's disease impacted my life, especially my personal life as well as my professional life. And through this process of writing this chapter, I really gained clarity on my desire to be an advocate for individuals that suffer with invisible diseases. And when I say that word, I mean those chronic autoimmune diseases, but also neurodiversity, as well as other types of disorders and diseases that we live with as individuals, but then we step into the workplace and we have to hide that part of ourselves. We have to leave it at the door and pretend like we have all the strength and power and capacity to show up fully. So this whole process has opened up this door of possibility for me. And I'm using my executive leadership, my background in finance, as a CFO and as an executive, and my own personal experience as an individual with Crohn's disease, as well as my children that have disorders and diseases as well. And I see their peers, like here they are 20 years old, and the workplace is not set up for their success. So how can we work with corporations and organizations to ensure that individuals with invisible diseases and disorders can be successful in the workplace? So it's a win-win scenario for both the employer as well as the employee, so that they can both thrive together. So that's really my next step. More to come on that, but that's where I plan on moving with my consulting business.
And now we're going to talk with Tasneem Damji. You're an academic and career coach with more than 20 years of international experience. Tell us about what your next steps are.
So we are going as a family to Tajikistan, and you will learn about Tajikistan in my chapter. And one of the things is that I work with students, many of them who are in Tajikistan, studying at an international university there. But I'm actually going to be speaking at the university in front of students and doing like a fireside chat. And a big part of it is sharing my story, not just the one in the chapter, but now I'm thinking about it, it will be part of that now. But just sharing my story about doing things out of my comfort zone, going to places that a lot of people don't go to or don't know about, trying new things, and not knowing where they will lead. My chapter is called Without Yet Knowing, and really helping young people see that when you live this kind of life, you grow so much, you learn so much about yourself. And it's only me now reflecting at 51 and connecting these dots of the times when I did things that I didn't know where they were leading to. And so that's what I'm going to be doing like in the immediate future. But what I really also want to be doing now is I didn't realize that this story, even though it was very personal, actually is very connected to my work. And my work with young people figuring out their next steps, figuring out their own lives on their own terms, and also working with families and parents who need to be supportive of that. And so I, maybe when I come back from my trip, would like to speak on more platforms, whether they're podcasts, whether they're on stage, whether, you know, I've always had this dream of doing a TED Talk, and I have many topic ideas that I'd love to choose from. And this could be one of them, but I'd like to do more speaking. And yeah, hopefully there will be audiences that want to hear the story, because now I realize that even though it's my story to me, it means something to them in different ways, depending on where they are in their lives. So I'm really excited about this trip and being able to go back to a place where all of this started from and being able to share that with young people in university. And yes, Katrina, it is a full circle moment in that my son is going to be doing a gap year there, and he doesn't yet know what all of this is going to turn into. So the chapter title is just perfect and another full circle moment.
I love this. Thank you all for sharing everything this has meant. So I'm going to bring Kassandra back up to the mic. And you had the stats. I don't know if you have them on hand, but I know that this book became an international bestseller, not in one country, not in two, not in three, but in four. Tell us, what was that like? Because I know that you were in charge of the launch. Tell us all about that, please.
Again, this comes back to community and supporting each other. And when we are all invested in something together, we can move mountains. So, with the idea of impact in mind, when we were designing this, I was like, let's try to get this out to as many people as we can, because this is a visibility project. This is about sharing our voice and stepping up to the plate in that way. I had no idea it was going to be an international bestseller. And so I guess that just goes to show that when we work together, it's actually a bigger scope than what you think is possible when you do something alone. And so for anyone who wants to collaborate on something, I think that message is really strong that I want to get across, in that many hands make light work. And I always say that, but it's so true.
What are your next steps, Kassandra?
Ooh, so my next steps are, I just received so much positive feedback from this that Sheila and I have decided to open up a volume 2. So we are now accepting more beautiful, resilience, courageous stories to come through so that we can do this again for others. Because this is more about the experience than the product, right? I think we can all agree on that. And what it could open up for women who are really stepping out of their own way and being supported to do so, we can move mountains. And so that's our next step in the co-author series world. I'm also starting a 8-women cohort called Back to Self-Leadership. And it is all about practicing together in a safe, supportive space for 6 weeks with tools that have worked really well for me. And I get to revisit again with 8 other beautiful women. So there's an invitation there. And I've also just finished a speaking program because I would like to get on stages and work with organizations in the face of AI to make sure that the human sustainability component is aligning with the systems that are meant to serve people that are working with them. So I want to make sure those two things are aligned. Yeah, so I've been having conversations with Katrina about talking to nursing students before they go to clinical rotation. How can we make sure that you are not going to burn out in this space? I've been talking and working with women to create workshops for organizations, for leadership, to understand how we can take better care of humans in the space and age of AI. So there's a lot more coming, but I've basically been building an ecosystem that I want to continue to expand and grow alongside other amazing women. So the invitation is here to connect.
And a little birdie told me, you've just been nominated. Can you tell us about that nomination?
Yeah, I was surprised as a new business to receive a nomination of this kind of magnitude in Canada, and not just in one category, but 3. So the She and Success Business Award for 2026, I was nominated in the Community Impact category, the Social and Sustainability Award, and then the Businesswoman of the Year award. So I just feel so honored to be seen, really, and recognized for the intention that I bring to these spaces.
It's almost like that full circle. You did all this good and now it's coming full circle to you. So before we wrap up today's episode, I would like, and I'll give you all a second to think, but I would like to go back around the room so that you can answer this. If you could go back to that version of yourself that had not shared your story yet, that woman before the podcast recording, before the book was published, what would you say to her and to any woman that's hearing you today? What is that key takeaway that you want them to walk away with? And we'll start in the same order. Let's start with Katrina.
Yeah, I'm thinking about myself then and how broken my heart was and how I felt trapped, so trapped and stuck. So if I was talking to her like I was talking to others, I would say, you're going to be okay. You got this. You got your back. I would say it's not going to feel like this forever. I would say I love you. And it's okay to be exactly who you are. And you are beautiful. That's what I would say to her. Yeah. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm taking a breath before we move on to Teresa.
Oh, I think in general, it would be just the message that you matter. No matter who hears this, no matter where it goes, no matter what it does, like your voice matters, your experience matters.
Just taking all this in. Diane,
I think my words would be, you can listen to your body and you are allowed to take care of yourself. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to breathe. You're allowed to be important in your own life.
thank you for sharing. Casey, you're up.
First, it would be you are worthy. Yeah, you are worthy and you are enough. And you know your body best, and you can only be your own best advocate. And so, even when you feel hopeless, defeated, do your best to take a breath, get back up, ask for your support, surround yourself with loving support, and know that you are worthy of your best life.
That's a beautiful message. Tasneem.
I was actually looking in the chapter because I think I wrote something about what I would say to myself. What I would say, and this is related to the chapter, it's related to just how I've lived my life probably the last maybe almost 30 years, is and something that I really try to impart in my kids and in my students that I work with is to say yes to things that scare you. And because it will help you grow, it will help you get to know yourself. It will build that resilience muscle in you. And you don't need to know where it's leading to or if it's leading to something. Say yes, and you will never regret your life.
And Kassandra.
I knew she was coming back for me. I would say trust your intuition. I have really come to see that women, when they lead themselves from a place of knowing and aligning with our values and being grounded in who we are and saying yes to trusting ourselves in the feeling, which is our knowing, we can create such a beautiful ripple effect in the world and connect in these really meaningful ways with ourselves and with each other. So I would say, yeah, trust your intuition, feel your way through this world and lead with your heart, and you will find your way.
So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today, and all of you that have tuned in. Every woman that showed up today, that sat down to share this conversation, a conversation of sharing her story. If you listen to the episodes, those stories then became a published book. And that book is now in the hands of not only these women, but in others that perhaps needed to read it. And so if you found value in any of their conversations or in reading a chapter of the book, make sure to share it to someone that may find it helpful. The Rise of the Self-Led Woman, Stories of Resilience, Realignment, and Rising is available now on Amazon in Kindle and paperback, and it's available worldwide. And this is what a milestone moment looks like. Thank you for tuning in today. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have a story of your own that you'd like to share, or have ever thought about becoming a published author, visit 5milestones.com to be a guest on the show. One conversation is all it takes to become a published author. You have a story that matters. It's time to tell it.